I am enjoying listening to your thoughts, all of them, not just the positive or the negative. I think when you work on something, you've got to be open to all of it. Our work is like a message we put in the bottle, send it into the ocean. It'll wash up somewhere, and we
Hmm.
cannot control where it washes up or how people view it or how people see it.
Shannon E. Johnson here, CEO of The Professional Pen, where we develop screenwriters from idea to pitch. Need help on your screenplay? Go to www.theprofessionalpen.com. I have my critiques, but overall, I thought it was a beautiful show. It was
Hmm.
cinematically shot, so it didn't make me feel like I was watching a TV show. I
Yeah,
appreciated that. Like watching
that's
the pilot, I was like, this feels like a movie.
and that was also, I want to say too, because again, that's also very intentional.
Mm-hmm.
Shouts out to, if you don't know him, our DP was a guy named Cambio. Shouts out
Mm.
to Cambio.
It was beautiful.
Cambio and Mar and Regina and Anthony and Timby, they all also came in with a very clear vision. Like we knew what we didn't want the show to look like.
Mm-hmm.
And so I started on the show as Mara's showrunner's assistant from almost inception. So like from the ideas and machinations of the show,
Yeah.
sitting there from its intention, it was one of those things where it's like we knew what we wanted it to look like.
Yeah.
And where I'd say Mara was very clear what she wanted it to look like, and then Cambio came and he adds, and Regina adds, and Anthony, you know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
then
Yeah.
all these people working together makes it look the way, and so it doesn't look like any other show that's
Mm-mm.
out there, especially no other show with teenagers at the forefront. It
Yeah.
looks completely different
Yeah.
than the rest of them.
Yeah. 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 It's very beautifully done. The directing is really great. The cinematography is awesome. The we even noticed that the graphics in the forever main titles would change
Yeah,
every
yeah,
episode.
yeah.
So I think we would be looking for that, that Easter egg
That
while we
was
were watching.
that was also something very intentional that Mara did. She thought about a lot of these details in
Hmm.
advance. Like those were in the script from the beginning. She wanted that.
So do you know why that time period? Why
Yes.
2017, 2018?
So, and I don't know if she said this anywhere or not yet, but that was the time period. Because I know because a lot of people are like, is 2017 really that different than what we're doing now? Like, why do that?
Yeah,
And
because of the Rona. Very different.
so the largest purpose in that was one because it was a different time and a different
Hmm.
time in LA specifically, but also believe it or not, fun fact, that was when Mara's son, her oldest son, was in high school.
Mm-hmm.
That was the year of his junior and senior year. So that's why
Hmm.
she wanted to be so specific with the show down to I am critiquing, and that's why the parents are so prevalent because she has a perspective and a point of view of what it meant to parent kids in
Hmm.
LA in that situation at that time.
Yeah.
So that's the critique, and that's why the time period
Yeah.
was specific in that way.
I love the parents. The parents were my favorite part. I was like, I know this show is about the teenagers.
Yeah. Well,
I love
I
the
was
parents.
laughing because I heard you as you were talking about Karen and your
Hmm.
thoughts about that. And it was funny because I remember a lot of people had that same thought. They're like, wait a minute, y'all done went and got Karen Pittman in the show about what are we gonna do? And
Yeah.
I'm sitting there the whole time thinking, like, baby, let me tell you, from scene one,
From scene
Karen got something.
one.
She has something that well, we didn't because sometimes you get great actors and sometimes you waste them. You
Yeah.
can waste them.
You can. Yeah.
And we got Karen Pittman and Wood Harrison. I'm just grateful that we didn't waste them.
No, they were used excellently.
Yeah.
And yeah, I had that same thing. I was like, now they didn't got Karen and Wood in here, so I'm expecting
Listen.
something. Like, can we spin off and go into their world
Listen, and now
once
that's a
these
great
kids go to
pitch.
college?
That's a great pitch. That's a great pitch. Because what is season? Because everybody wants to know that too. Like, what's season two going to be in?
Yeah.
Who knows?
Will we, still be around college age or like right outside of college? So likely they could, because obviously these actors are not 17, 16 years old.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
it's like they could, probably play a little bit older as well, but Black don't crack. So what people think, a 27-year-old looks like, they actually still look about
Right.
17,
Right. And
depending
I
upon,
I
you
also
know.
like that because sometimes you see shows and everybody look grown. Like they
Yeah.
look grown.
Christian, he came
Hey,
on the scene and I was like, now who is he supposed to be dating? Whose
hey,
father is this?
we shaved them. We did our
Yeah, you
best.
did.
We
You
shaved
did.
them. And yes, somebody said shout out to Tanja. Listen, Tanja, she was our costume designer. My sister, she came in and she approached costume designing from a stylist standpoint, as opposed to just and like what's the real storytelling of these kids and everybody, and like how do we communicate it that way. So
Yeah.
yeah, shout out for that. But yes, you are right. That's that's a great point.
That's the thing that's exciting about something that's called Forever, and it's about love, which is the other thing. And it didn't spoil it for me, but the other reason I wasn't in shambles in episode 8 when they were breaking up is because I'm like, guys, the show's called Forever.
Yeah,
So
there's a lifetime of a story to tell here. You know
yeah,
what I mean? And that's,
yeah.
I think that's the beauty of it. Is like it almost reminds me of there are two things that were always on my mind as we were working on it even. One, and I said this from the beginning, to me was Corey and Topanga. I was constantly thinking of Corey and Topanga because when I think about Forever, I think about them. Like I'm always
Mm-hmm.
like, okay, what's going on? Because those two, like we
Mm-hmm.
met Corey, I think in fourth grade, and we followed them through their like second year of college, and them getting
Crazy.
married and all of that. Like that's like when I think of this documentary called Hoop Dreams.
Mm-hmm.
If you ever seen it, they follow these two kids, and through all the machinations of what it means to follow a dream. And that was a documentary. They had over 1,000 hours of footage that they had to compile. And so when I'm
Mm-hmm.
thinking of Forever and what does Forever look like, what does Forever mean, that was like one of my main thoughts
Yeah.
that I pulled.
Yeah. I always think of Rachel and Ross.
Another good one.
And
That's another good one.
though this
Alan Mack.
show couldn't, yeah, though this show couldn't do that because since it is called Forever, they have to jump through time, a lot because we got to
Yeah.
get through it. What
Yes.
I enjoy about Rachel and Ross's love story is that they get time to be in love and then they get time to be apart, which
Yes.
makes us want them to be together. They would spend season after season not being together.
Mm-hmm.
Ross was getting married again. Rachel was dating Bruce Willis, like and real relationships. You know what I'm saying? To
Yes.
make the audience go, dang, well
And
maybe
then
they won't be together.
and I think
You
about
know?
you remember the one from Gilmore Girls? I thought that was another good one.
Yeah.
I'm blanking on
And
the
so
names, but yeah.
they make us pine for it,
Yes.
instead of jumping in and jumping out every season. It's like, no, because then I'm gonna get tired of them.
Yes.
Like, even when you think about Olivia and the president, uh
Yeah.
it's like obviously he was a married man, so it's a little bit different, right?
Yeah.
But we do
Just a little
get
bit.
some time where Olivia's like, no, I'm not on him.
Well, but and you know what else I think too? I also feel like they're from the technique standpoint and from like the craftsmanship of writing, there is such a special dance that we dance of the will they won't they. The will
Yeah.
they won't they is such a special dance to do. And I remember you talking about what you talked about in terms of being invested. How invested are you on people who are on the stylistics breakup to makeup train?
Mm-hmm.
Like because like you said, like sometimes even if it's your best girl, your home girl, if she break up with that brother enough times, the next time she come to you, girl, you're not gonna believe you right, I'm not, and I don't
You're
believe
not.
it.
And
Y'all be
now
blessed
I'm at
up with
your wedding with my face scrunched up. I'm at your baby shower with my face scrunched up. Like, I'm not going to get over it because I just don't know if I should bother to invest.
yeah, because
You know what I'm
at
saying?
that point it's like I've seen too much.
Yeah.
I've seen
Mm-hmm.
too much, so it's hard for me to lock in and be as invested in this thing as you would want me to because
Yeah.
I know all the nooks and crannies of it. And if it's
Mm-hmm.
that bad, because I think like a lot of people said relationships are that, and yes, they are that. But like you said too, especially being from the South, or even if you got Southern culture around you, like a lot of these people they get together, and somebody even talked about how they were teachers. Like I literally was teaching in high schools in LA when I got this job and left teaching. And what I'm saying is there's also that element of kids in high school that really genuinely think this they've been locked in from since freshman year
Locked in.
completely. And I think what you were talking about in a sense, it was the fact that Keisha and Justin kind of never locked in
Not
from a
for me.
viewer standpoint.
Yeah, like
Yeah,
on
for a lot of
screen.
viewers,
They must have locked
yeah,
in off screen because then we would jump back in and they would be in the
yeah,
middle of all of this goodness. And I'm going, but the last time I saw y'all had broken. So how much time has passed, and like how? Oh, the whole family coming over for Christmas? Oh, look, I thought this was a missed opportunity. When the whole family was over for Christmas and we didn't get a scene of those daddies, I said, oh, this is missed opportunity. I would have loved to see Wood and what's his name?
Will.
Wood and Will. Yes, Will. Wood and Will have a conversation. I was like,
Absolutely.
oh, that would have been fan freaking tastic.
And this is one of those things where it's like, I think it's something important for writers to know as you're looking at shows and as we're making notes about shows. Something that I think is important for writers to know is that we are always doing post-script analysis, because we have no idea what went into, like, there may be a scene that we're saying, oh, I wish they would have done this, but you don't know that actor got in a car accident that day. That scene was on the page.
Got cut.
It was late. We lost it. We didn't have the time. Whatever. It could be the most random thing. Maybe there was this moment where there's a track meet happening, but then we had a budget conversation with our line producer and we said, hey, do you want to lose prom or a track meet? You know what I'm saying? Like, there's so many, and now as writers, you're sitting there, now y'all, hey, everybody, hey, I need everybody in the office immediately. We got to figure this out.
Figure out which baby we gonna drown.
Listen, because one of them got to go.
One of them got to go.
And
we can't afford them.
Might not care which. They like, look, you got to, you're losing one. Don't make me no never mind. One of them got to go. And I think that's even like sometimes when I tell writers all the time, like when you're comparing yourself to scripts that are the products of a room, first of all, a room which is maybe 10 to 12 collective minds working to make something great. On top of the fact, other than the room, you also have producers who have a wealth of, like, we had a producer on a project named Susie Fitzgerald, who was a part of the teams that developed Breaking Bad, Better Call Saul, The Walking Dead, and if I'm not mistaken, The Sopranos. So how much knowledge does she come with about making TV? Then you have executives at a network who have notes, who have thoughts, who are all a part of this process. And then you get to a set where you have directors and gaffer and all these people. There's probably about 200 people putting their hands on this script to make it what we see. But when we're sitting there writing and we're thinking one thing, you sitting there at your house, at your laptop, or at your coffee shop, by yourself. And it's like, you may sit there be feeling bad, like, oh, if my script could just be, girl, you don't know what this script looked like.
You don't know what's going. Yeah.
You don't know.
That's one of the reasons why I am so adamant to writers about, if you don't want to be collaborative, this is not the industry for you. I don't understand how we're taught as babies that two heads are better than one. And then writers are like, I don't want no notes. Don't tell me you don't know my characters better than I do. How you gonna tell me how I want to do it my way? Don't you know that everything that we have seen that you deem great had 200 some hands on it?
And
for me, I can't wait. Like when I'm writing, I can't wait. Like when I finish, I'm like, ooh, I know somebody gonna have a good idea for this. I'm just trying to give them a blueprint. I'm trying to give them a great foundation, and then I'm going, ooh, especially if I get to work with a director or a producer or whoever, like you said, who has this wealth of knowledge, who has this experience. I can't wait to how they're going to elevate my stuff. Can't wait. But the writers out here like, I'm going to do it by myself. I don't want this. I don't want that. It's like, bro, you don't want this industry, you know?
Yeah, and it's like, and that's even in features. Sometimes people say, well, I'm going to just do features. Listen, as long as you are asking for somebody's money, you're going to have to take somebody's notes. I think this is highlighted, if you don't believe us, or you feel like, well, what have y'all, you know what I'm saying? People have, I remember Kenya Barris left his Netflix deal. And when he left it, he did an interview and he said, I needed more oversight. I had oversight here. It was a little too much at ABC. Then I went to Netflix and they let me do whatever I wanted to. And I looked at the work and said, I need
that's not how you grow.
I need some checks and balances here to say, hey, because we have seen a couple projects where people were able to sit in the room and do whatever they wanted to do. How many of them were the one? You know what I'm saying? Like, and don't get me wrong, and that's why a showrunner like Amar or whatever, or whoever, is important, because when you start talking about building a room and building producers and building those things, it's not always about who's the best writer, who's the best this and who's the best that. Who understands the world I'm trying to create, what I'm trying to do. For example,
Mm-hmm.
Forever, we didn't get into any ancillary storylines really. We were
No,
hyper
on
focused
them.
on
Absolutely.
them. And a
Mm-hmm.
lot of shows, like even if you like juxtapose it to another show, and again, this is to be clear, I'm not saying one is better
Yeah,
or
yeah,
worse. Just saying
yeah.
as you're writing,
Mm-hmm.
if you juxtapose it to another LA high school story like Bel Air, their
Mm-hmm.
storylines, and to me, in a good way, you have the parents over here working through cheating, divorce, being the throuple,
Mm-hmm.
swinging. You have Ashley over here working through gender and being on the spectrum. You have Will with all of his stuff. You have Carlton with all of his stuff. You got Hillary over here who got a husband but maybe she liked jazz, and then you got Jeffrey with a son and the whole. It's so much
It's
going on.
so
There's
much,
such an
yeah.
expanse versus what we did. It was a much more intimate look at two
Mm-hmm.
people. And
Yeah.
we're going to explore this. And you also highlighted something else about that I wanted to point out I thought it was really great that you brought it out. How Black women, Black girls are forced to be decision makers a lot sooner.
Mm-hmm.
And Black boys are often allowed, especially when you come from privilege, like Justin did. Now, if you don't come from privilege, you kind of do got to make some
Yeah.
decisions. But when you come from privilege, you do have more leniency. Like, and it's the old adage where we say, I think they say what is it, the quote? We parent our sons and raise our daughters or
We
something like
raise,
that.
yeah, we raise, yeah. Mm-hmm.
And it's one of those, and you pointed out, and I think the beautiful part about it is that we now see those boys deserve to have their story
Yeah,
told as well.
absolutely.
If you don't have, because I love, like, on one hand we took the thing where it's like Black boys doing music or they doing sports. We took
Mm-hmm.
that and said, actually, he's not sure about any of it.
Yeah.
There are a lot of boys out there because a lot of boys want to hoop, they want to do this and they want to do all of that, and then you hit a point where you like, I don't do I really want to go, and now you're trying to figure out what it is you want to do.
Mm-hmm.
Somebody asked, no, it wasn't written like that. If I'm not mistaken, somebody said, was it written like that because it was without a promise you can suit? No, that
No.
it was.
Almost everything is written without a promise of season 2. Almost
Yeah,
everything.
and especially if you don't look like this, you know,
Yeah, almost everything.
you ain't. It's tough to get that promise
Yeah.
without that.
I-
But no, yeah,
yeah, and so that's one of the things that I mean, literally, the thing opens and we're with Justin, and I went, we're with him, not her. This is
mm-hmm.
already different, right? This is
Yeah,
already different. It's already coming from a different place. Now, I will say that the hyper focus became a little monotonous for me,
mm-hmm.
but that's because it was not just hyper focused on them as characters, but hyper focused on their relationship. So there
Yes,
was much more
yes,
time for the jump in, jump out, jump in, jump out, because we weren't really following too much of anything else even they had going on. Like once the Christian thing kind of went away, and even then when it did, it was only really brought up when they were together or when, she might have been talking to a homegirl.
mm-hmm.
Only get 1 or 2 scenes with Keisha and Christian. So this is the good and the bad of it, right? Because I actually had this thought when I was reading Twilight. Watching Twilight, I didn't feel this way because the movies came out every 2-3 years or something, right?
Right, right.
Reading Twilight, I got to a point where I said, this relationship is toxic and it's unhealthy and they need to leave each other alone. It is now an obsession. That's how I felt reading Twilight, because I was an adult. I was in my late 20s reading it, and I was like, yo, this is not okay. And so as I was watching them, even though I don't think it got to a toxic place for me, it still felt like their entire worlds revolved around each other and that there was literally nothing else. And not to say that that's not how teenagers feel, but them feeling that way and that being the reality, because my boyfriend and I in high school, we definitely revolved around each other. But I was also involved in 15 activities, so there was somewhere else I had to be at some point.
Like, and then some of us, my mom and them wasn't gonna let us. We couldn't be too involved.
We couldn't be too involved, right?
At a certain point, but that also to me highlights the changing of the guard. Like even like simple stuff like seeing Justin cuss around his parents. I know there are Black folk of a certain generation like, oh, now when I walked through them school doors, I had all the cuss words. I was Bernie Mac in school. But when I was with my mama, But it's
Mm-mm.
interesting to see that parenting, not just the world, but parenting is evolving.
Mm-hmm.
And
Mm-hmm.
it's
Everything is.
everything
It simply
is,
is.
yes.
I was a substitute teacher for a while in Washington, D.C. Oh, the stories I could tell. And I
Uh-huh.
remember those kids didn't view curse words like curse words. They were just words.
Just words,
So they
yeah.
weren't intending to be, I mean, they knew that they were being disrespectful because they would use it in order to disrespect somebody. You know what I mean? They were putting sauce
Yes.
on stuff. That's why they were using it, but they were using them more as adjectives and adverbs and nouns instead of like these are
Yes.
words that are not supposed to be said. Whereas we
Yes.
grew up with like there are just particular words you don't use around adults, period.
And
And
sometimes they're not
if you
even
were a church
cuss words.
person, yeah, and sometimes not even curse word. And as a church, kid, it was you don't use those words at all.
At all.
So
Yeah.
when I got to these teenagers who were using these words, like they might as well, have been saying the word beautiful. And I remember I said one time, like, I can't remember what I said, but something about, watch your language. And he literally looked at me and was like, well, what? What did I say?
Mm-hmm.
And when I said it back to him, he was like, oh, because
Like,
it
oh,
just
my
doesn't
bad.
even, yeah, like, oh, my bad. He don't even look at it as something that shouldn't be said.
Yeah. And
Um,
I also say like a lot of the things you're saying, it's like I'll say this is what I will say. Nothing you mentioned here wasn't heard before throughout the
mm-hmm,
process.
mm-hmm,
You know what I'm saying? And I think that's why it's important for writers to, I feel like writers really have to know. And I say this, and I'll learn this, even we learned this from Mara. Happy birthday to Mara, by the way.
happy
Um,
birthday. Today's my
yeah,
best friend's birthday, too.
but come on, Geminis. You have to know before the meeting what hill you're willing to die on.
Absolutely.
You have to know what you're willing to fight about. Like, what am I willing to fight about? And the next step that writers sometimes miss is how do I defend it from a story perspective?
Yeah.
Because you can't defend it from a, well, I
From
feel,
emotional, no.
yeah, it
Mm-mm.
has to be what is the, and I would say this is the part where I would say, if you can get in a room or on a show, if it's a PA, if it's a showrunner's assistant, whatever it is, do it if you've never done it. Don't feel like it's a beneath you or whatever. Do
Mm-mm.
it because there is such a master class in the notes process, in the how to
Mm-hmm.
deal with an executive, how to
Mm-hmm.
how to find the note behind the note, how to uh, calm their tensions and
Yeah.
their apprehensions to your
Yeah.
story, how to make them see. Mara was a master at the notes game, the
Mm-hmm.
dance of notes that you do with a network. And if you and some of you, I know some people are executives or whatever, there's a dance that's happening. And you
Mm-hmm.
gotta know when you've gone too far, when to pull it back, when they've gone
Mm-hmm.
too far, how they can pull it back. What are the power dynamics at place? Because at the same time, Mars' power that she's swinging with her sword is not the same as this is my first time. I'm a
No.
showrunner. Da da da. Y'all
Mm-mm.
not swinging the same sword. She got
Mm-mm.
400 episodes of TV that she's done.
Mm-hmm.
That's a different thing. She's been
Yeah.
doing it. She's been doing it longer than half the executives she's talking to. So
Yeah.
there's
And
a
the trust is different.
the trust is different. It's just
Mm-hmm.
like Quintus said that. Quintus said, I had to be so clear about Abbott because I don't have the resume of Norman Lear. Norman Lear can say, I want to do a show about this. And they'll say, let's do
Cool.
it. We trust Norm. Norm's been doing this for so long. And until you build that, you have to be okay with defending your
Mm-hmm.
perspectives from a story perspective.
Story. Absolutely.
Because, like
Absolutely.
all those
Especially when it's
questions you
about
asked me,
money. When it's about
yes.
money, when it's about budget, when it's like that's your weapon. That's your evidence is really understanding what it's going to do to the story.
And that's the
Um,
difference between a showrunner and a writer.
it's one of the reasons why a lot of people will send me their comments about shows in my DM. They
Mm-hmm.
won't put it on the post, right?
Yeah.
Or I've even had people who didn't want to work with me because they said, well, you talk about people's work. And I said, well, there's a difference between criticism and critique. And then there's also a difference between me just getting up here and deciding to review things and me getting up and talking about story and
Yeah.
choices that are made to an audience of writers and filmmakers who also want to make it, because writers and filmmakers need a space to be able to talk about our craft too, right?
Yeah.
But with that being said, the other reason I'm not afraid to say these things out loud is because what you said before, a real group of writers has already
We've
thought
already
about
heard
all
it.
of it.
We've
They've already heard
and
it. They've thought about it. It was something they were going to do that they didn't get to do. It was a stupid note that came from the execs, and that's why it's in there. Like, there are all kinds of
and
things.
I guarantee you they fought about it. And the reality is, and writers know this, you're gonna lose a lot of these fights.
Lou,
A lot of these
exactly.
fights you're going,
Mhm.
like, you may walk in there and say, I want Christian to be formidable. Like, that may be something that you say. Not saying it was or it wasn't, but that may
Yeah.
be something that is said, and then somebody goes, no, because I think this is just an example.
Hmm.
Somebody may the executive may respond, your network may respond to that and say, if Christian is too formidable, Justin is too lost to win that, or or we make Justin win more, or we can't make Christian as formidable because now we're going to make Keisha look crazy when she makes whatever decision she makes, and we
Hmm.
don't want that.
Hmm.
So, like,
Yeah,
it's those things, and then sometimes it may even be put on your producer hat how the contract we have with Christian
absolutely.
and what we have
That's
for
what I
him
was
in the
going to say.
budget. Yeah,
That's what I was going to
we got
say.
him for X amount of episodes,
Yeah.
and if we take him, and this is an important part for y'all who want to become producers, showrunners, executive, because now the conversation could become Christian is in X amount of episodes, and he's considered a guest star. If we put him in another episode, he gets upgraded to a series regular. We don't have the budget. We can't make him a series regular, so we have
Hmm.
to figure his story out between here and here,
And
and
that's
that's all
it.
we got.
Absolutely.
So some of those,
Yeah.
and that's a real thing.
That's a real thing. That was the next thing I was going to say. I've been on a show before, and we created a character to give one of our other characters, their own storyline, so we could kind of dig deeper into their background and their history and their trauma about why they behave the way they behave.
Mm-hmm.
Sent that outline over to the network, and they were like, "No, we don't want this character." Or we got a note back that, oh, such and such actor is now, double booked and can't even do X,
Yeah,
Y, and Z after we have written out their whole storyline.
yeah,
Now
yeah. Or
it's
like,
like, oh yeah, they're not gonna even be there. Take them
yeah.
out.
And now, and you got to figure, and typically you got to figure that out in much less time than it took you to come up with it. That
Absolutely,
turnaround is usually
absolutely.
like, oh no, we're shooting this soon. We
We're
gotta,
shooting this. Yeah. No,
yeah.
that happened to us. We literally had somebody not show up to set, and as
Mm-hmm.
you know, the only reason they're supposed to be on set that day is because we're shooting their stuff,
We're
like
shooting
their
you.
scenes.
This
And
whole
that
day
was
is built
the
around
whole
you.
day is built around you. And that was an entire storyline for one of our characters. And the person who helps to push that along did not show up that day. And we lost that entire storyline and therefore had to work it out in post to make it connect or figure out how to drop it all.
Mm-hmm.
Like, well, how do we drop every moment that this person talks about this thing that's happening over here?
Yeah, and that's
So
why I think what you're doing specifically is so important because you're not saying I hated this. This was bad. You know what I'm saying? Like the
hmm
things you're saying are valid, and they probably can come from that type of place where it's like what you just said. If what you just said happens and it takes place, you lose this and you lose that. Somebody may come with a postscript analysis and say, "Hey, I didn't understand the point of this." Like, yeah, because what you don't know and what I can't tell you is we
but I
lost
can't
a
tell
week.
you.
We
Yeah.
lost a week because a league got COVID, and that week cost us $250,000, and we ain't got it. So we had to
When you
lose
got it.
this, and we had to pull from here. We had to rob Peter to
Hmm.
pay Paul, and fix it in post. So
Yeah.
yes, that's your critique, and I'm not gonna be mad at it because, and like that's
Because you don't know.
you
Yeah.
don't know. And
Hmm.
if you and sometimes with some shows, like there are shows I'm sure you've heard about them. People work on and they say, "Baby, I'm just happy we got what we got." Because there was some days when I didn't know if we would get what we.
I think we were going to make it. Yeah. And I think that's what's so great about this business, is that you don't have that information. So you're always speaking from a place of this. I'm working with the information that I have. And
Mm-hmm.
depending upon the writer, depending upon the network or the streamer or the studio, I trust enough that those people probably thought about all these things I'm saying out loud.
Yeah.
I'm not saying them out loud for those people. Like, that's the other thing that I want people to hear when they're like, oh, you're on here and you're talking about X, Y, and Z. I'm not talking to them. Now, that doesn't mean it won't come across their timeline, but I'm talking to people who are aspiring to be in this industry and be in those positions who may not understand how you get to this kind of place and can be looking for these kind of plot holes themselves. And again, once they get in, because they're only going to have so much control over what they write in that script anyway, right? Because they're just writing the foundation. Your job is to try to make sure you plug in as much of these holes as you can, and then from there it might be somebody else who causes the hole and there's nothing you can do about it, right? But we want the thing that you have said so many times today that I am sure of and clear on, because I have watched Mara's work, is intentional. So when I'm giving notes, I use that word intention a lot. Like, if you're intending to do this, this is what's coming from it. If you're not intending to do this, that's the note. Because that's the information that I'm getting, right? And so as a writer, you and someone who will, if you are at least in television, will likely end up producing at some point. That's the key. That's the key, is that it's as intentional as you possibly can, because that's going to be your armor. You do have to walk into those rooms and fight for your story. You know, you have to be doing things intentionally. And so I love hearing that about Mara, and I believe it. So I appreciate you being here with us today, dropping gems, talking to us about the industry, talking to us about Forever. And so if you guys haven't watched Forever, you want to tell everybody where they can find it?
Oh, please, if you can, watch Netflix. It's on Netflix. If you haven't seen it, steal somebody's password. Put it on in your sleep. Put it on mute. Watch, just run it up as much as you can. And also, from a real perspective, the better Forever does, the better it is for all of us. All y'all with a YA scripts, getting YA scripts are almost impossible these days. So the better Forever does, the more you can say, my show is like Forever meets whatever. And that's important. That's important. But thank you for creating the space, for being and sharing your wisdom and everything. Like, because people pay a lot of money for the things that you share here for free.
Thank you.
And or that information is gatekept. Like, people gatekeep that information. So thank you for sharing it, everything that you have to offer as well, because you were spot on a lot of stuff.
All right. Well, thank you guys so much for being here.
Thank you for having me. Absolutely.
We'll have to do this again.
And that's it. Want more content? Like, subscribe, and for notifications. Get notes on your script that get you unstuck at www.theprofessionalpen.com.
The professional pen.
I'm out.